Trauma Therapist Podcast Plus listeners can listen to episodes early and ad-free right now. Become a Plus listener by going to Apple Podcasts, searching for the Trauma Therapist Podcast, and signing up today. All right, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to help trauma therapists be their incredible selves, to be human, to be real, not just a clinician. I'm a big believer in who we are is more important than what we know. And this requires cultivating authenticity, genuineness, and vulnerability, and that requires intention. You can learn more about my courses and workshops by going to thetraumatherapistproject.com. That's thetraumatherapistproject.com. Let's get started. So here we go. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the podcast. Very excited to have as my guest today, Audrey White. Audrey, welcome.
Thank you, Gay. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. Appreciate you being here. So Audrey White is the CEO of the Grief Coach Academy and holds a Master of Public Health from the University of Michigan. She understands grief both professionally and personally. In 2020, Audrey lost 8 family members, including a mother. In 2022, her brother was tragically killed by his wife, who subsequently took her own life. Through her own journey of healing, Audrey has developed a deep compassion for those suffering from loss, setbacks, and grief. Audrey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
So before we go in here, share with our listeners where you're from originally and where you are currently.
So I am from a little tiny town in Michigan, grew up northern lower Michigan on the shores of Lake Huron, and lived there for a number of years and moved out to California. I'm in San Jose, California. I've been here for just over 21 years now. And this is home.
And you just got back from Africa.
And I just got back from Africa.
How did you? Okay, well, let's take a little digression here. Why did you decide to go to Africa?
So I reconnected with a friend that I knew in Michigan, and we had dropped off. We had actually worked together. You know how the universe works. I was in a bar in San Francisco watching the Michigan State game, and in walks this woman, and we're both like, gosh, I know you. And this is back in 2015. And it took us a while to put it together, but we had actually worked together on the statewide crisis lines when we were right out of college. This is back in, late 90s. And it was right before it was right after my daughter was born. So it was around 95, and hadn't seen her since. And one of the things that she loves to do is travel. And so I was raising, I had my babies young. And so I was busy raising my babies when I was little, when I was much younger. How's that? And she loves to put together trips. And so she put together this African safari. And she's like, who wants to go? And she always invites her tribe. And I said, yeah, it'll be my 55th birthday. I want to go. And I had committed to going. And this was a few months before my brother was killed. And I called her afterwards going, I don't know if I can commit to this. I don't know where I'm going to be at that time. I don't know what's going on. And she said to me, Audrey, you're going to need something to look forward to. You're going to need something for you, because you will get through this. And it's important for you to have something for yourself. And I said, I don't know. She goes, we're going to commit to this. Whatever you need, I'm here, and I will cover anything that you need.
Jesus.
I said, okay. And so it was the best thing, because it truly is. It's been this, and we'll go back and we'll talk about everything that happened, but to be able to celebrate my birthday there. And I took a little piece of John with me, my brother, and left him in the Serengeti and in the Indian Ocean. And so it was a magical way of having him with me on this journey of releasing him on my travels. And it has been very healing, very healing. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that story. Uh, it, I mean, this just sounds so intense. How did this start for you? I mean,
So, let's see, how far back do you want to go? God, there's a whole lot to talk about. And let me just quickly go through how I grew up. I was the youngest of three in a little teeny tiny town. And my oldest brother, John, 15 years older than I. Randy, my next brother, is 11 years older than I. And then there was me. And so I grew up kind of as an only child. I remember my oldest brother, John, coming home from college. I don't remember living with him. I mean, I was probably 3 when he would come home from college, and we'd watch Sesame Street and Star Trek, and we would build the Starship Enterprise on my light bright together. And those are my first memories of my brother, John. And and so growing up as an only child, essentially, my dad was an alcoholic. My mother was really swept into her codependency and survival. So I never really felt like I fit in this family. I didn't know how I belonged because they didn't want to talk about anything. And I'm like, I want to talk about everything. Like, there's an elephant in the room. Let's address this.
mm-hmm.
And so I always felt like this alien. And I study psychology. I worked on the crisis lines and ended up with a master's in public health. And the whole while I'm working on healing myself. Like, there's so many things with adult children of alcoholics, what we go through and how we look at the world and never feeling like we fit in. I was also sexually abused by a cousin when I was younger. And so this idea of that my body's not my own, that my life isn't my own, was always there. And I think since I left, moved out of my family of origin, I've been struggling to just find myself and struggling with this idea of self-worth, struggling with all of this. Well, fast forward, I ended up in a relationship with a narcissist for 6 years, which really, really impacted how I looked at my life. It worn me down so much that this idea of trust and intimacy and belief in myself really, when all of that fell apart, I was probably at an all-time low, and that was back in 2019. And that's when I found Aurora Winter and the Grief Coach Academy. And I knew I needed this to heal. My father had died in 2005. And that was truly the first time that I understood why I was in this family. As he was dying, the doctor had told my mother, there's nothing more we can do. And I saw my mother just collapse in her chair. And I knelt down beside her and I said, Mom, that we got this. Like, death is just birth. And we're going to hold him, and we know how to do birth. And we're going to just birth him to the next, to what's next. And I don't know where those words came from, because it was something that it was almost this feeling of like, okay, I'm saying this, where did it come from? And so that night we held vigil. We, sang and prayed and held him. It was really important for my mother to have my brother John get there in time to say goodbye to him before she was ready to let go. And as he entered the room, Mom fell apart, John fell apart. And I just walked over to my dad and I put my hand on his heart, put my hand on the crown of his head, and just held him until he let go. And it was like, it was this innate knowing of how to do death and how to hold this. And that was in 2005. And then go through everything, went through this horrible breakup in 2019 that really cost me a lot of my self-worth at that point. I met Aurora Winter, who was the founder of the Grief Coach Academy. And I went, I've always wanted to go through and help people through grief and loss and death and dying. And it just never knew how to get there. And it just felt like the perfect opportunity to really focus on this. And it helped me so much to go through my own grief of not only my father, but at the time, grieving the loss of this relationship, grieving my belief in myself, grieving who I thought I was versus how did I get into this place. And the way the universe worked, it really set me up to have these tools and have this community around me who really hold space for grief and loss. And then comes 2020. And the whole world changes. And we're all in, this intense form of grief from losing our society, losing our connections, our community through COVID. And at the very beginning of COVID, it kicked off the end of February. I lost my dog. So let's put that out there. But she was like my dog. And I hadn't had her for very long. And she was just... things happened really fast, as they do. And then it was this cascade of, I lost a cousin. A couple of weeks later, it was my uncle, my mom's youngest brother. My cousin's wife passed away. I swear it was from a broken heart. She just couldn't live without him. I had another cousin pass away. In the end of September, mid-September, one of my mom's sisters, there was 3 sisters left. And one of my mom's sisters, Aunt Mady, had passed. And we all talked to each other, my cousins, and I'm like, this is going to happen. Like, they're all going to go because they're not going to want to stay here without each other. And I remember my mom saying after Mady passed that it's one less connection she had in the world. And 13 days later, my mother died. And 6 weeks after that, my last aunt died. And then shortly thereafter, a few months later, her husband died. And so it was this cascade of losing so many people in a very short amount of time, none to COVID, but it was some were expected, some were unexpected. But we couldn't get together and grieve. We couldn't come together and celebrate their lives and support one another in person. And I have to kind of have a caveat with this because I had an amazing death with my mother in the middle of COVID. So I'm so grateful and feel so blessed that the hospital where she was at in Kansas really allowed us to they shut us in a room, just do what we wanted. She had lost the ability to swallow, like her muscles just were not working. And I told my mother, I was with her and I'm watching all these tests that they're doing. And I'm like, this is it. I said, Mom, you can't eat. It's been days since you've eaten. You can no longer even swallow sips of water or ice chips. You're choking on this. And I said, we only have a matter of a few days at best. And are you ready to die? And she just looked at me and said, yes. It's like, well, all right. Here's this woman who just embraced what is. And I really believe that through the work that I've done, that I was able to hold that space for her. And it was so different than my dad's death because it didn't tell us what was going on till the very end. And with Mom, we were able to have this time where it's like, this is happening. Mm-hmm. And so it was the acknowledgement of it. I don't know how she found the strength, but she talked for days. We had, I think, 3 or 4 days where we talked and we laughed and we cried and we did all the things. I managed to arrange a private, little concert from a friend of mine who's a musician. He called on FaceTime and sang to her. And we just did all the things, And 2 days before she had passed, I received notice that the company I was working for was acquired. And so it's like, here we go. Like, here's this going on and this going on. And so there's a lot going on at once. And I was so grateful that my brother and I, Shauna and I, could be with my mom. And just, like I said, they shut the door and let us do what we needed to. And I think half the time they thought we were just having a party in there because we were laughing so much. And it was really beautiful. When she finally was tired one evening, she goes, I don't think I can talk anymore. And I said, okay, it's all right. You don't have to. And the next morning, her breathing had changed. And my brother and I were with her, and he stepped out of the room. And I just held her hand and I started singing to her. And she let go. And to be in that space it's such an honor to have been there for both my parents as they were letting go. And that I know that I did things the way she wanted. Sorry. It was such a blessing, And I took some time off after that a little bit to just reconnect and feel grounded. 2021, I'm dealing with this acquisition. And I had worked for this company, Myocardia, for about 4 years. And all of a sudden, when you're acquired, they put in place other people. So like we have departments that are just gone, and all of a sudden you're sending an email, you get a bounce back, and it's like, I didn't know that person was gone, So it's this loss again of not being able to come together to celebrate, which all of us felt during COVID. Losing people left and right that I'd worked with for years. And at the end of that year, the end of 21, it's like, I can't do this anymore. I talked to my doctor. I'd been kind of in this functional depression where I was handling work, not at the level I was used to, but handling it. But nothing in my life was being handled. My health wasn't being handled. And my doctor's like, that's it. You need to go out for a little while and take care of yourself. So January of 2022, I went out for a couple weeks, or what was intended to be a couple weeks. And 8 weeks into my leave, I'm like, okay, starting to feel like myself again. I've taken care of like all of these appointments that I haven't done for years. And I get a call, or I actually got a Facebook message from this woman. And she said, I'm your brother's neighbor. Can you call me? This is 9:00 at night, my time. He lived in Kansas. And I'm like, I knew as soon as I called her. And Shelley just said, I'm their neighbor, and I don't know how to tell you this, but they're both gone. And I said, she killed him, didn't she? Because I knew this was going to happen. I knew in my bones. Sorry. And you don't think this is going to happen to your family, right? It's something that happens elsewhere. You see this on the news. And how do people move through this? And all of a sudden, I'm having to tell my children, calling my daughter on the East Coast, telling her that her uncle was killed. I'm talking to sheriffs and all of this stuff that's going on, trying to make sense of what happened. And like I said, it's something you don't think is going to happen in your family. And yet his wife struggled with mental illness. I could see she was spiraling. I had asked him to get the guns out of the house. God, he's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. Everything's locked up. So after that happened, I ended up having to go to Kansas to handle the estate. I was the only one, left in terms of the family. By that time, my little brother had, as I like to say, seceded from the family. He had dealt with his, I think, the issues of codependency and kind of the trauma that we grew up with. Each of us grew up with in his own way. And for John, I see his codependency coming out in kind of this ultra responsible honor duty. This is my vow. And I would talk to him. I'm like, you're no longer married to her. You're married to her disease, and you can't fix this. And at some point you have to really look at that and say, what do you want to do? And his choice, and I have to remember this, it was his choice to honor his vows, to honor his duty in a way he had sacrificed his life a long time before he was ever killed. And I know that that's who he was as a person. And so I've been able to make peace with this whole situation. But in the days that followed, I flew out to Kansas. That's where they lived. I didn't grow up there. Into a community that was grieving, and I knew that I needed to hold the space and honor my brother in the way that he lived his life. And in order to do that, I couldn't hold on to this anger that his wife killed him. So it was a very conscious choice. And what I know and what I believe is that anger and negative thoughts, if I'm harboring it against somebody else, it doesn't fall on them, it falls on me. And it was a very conscious thing to say, if I allow this anger, if I can't release this, it's going to destroy my life. I'm sacrificing my life. My brother's already sacrificed his. I don't need to do this. So, I let that go as best I could in the moment, and really showed up in this community who really thought that this was she had a mental break. And it was like, this was intentional. This was planned. This was premeditated. And walking that line of speaking the truth, but with love and compassion, because all these people are grieving. Mm-hmm. And that's how I got here. That's been my life. And so that was March 21st of 2022.
So, wow. You have a really beautiful way of articulating your story and your experience. How do you define grieving? What is it? What is grieving?
Well, I think for me, it's that love that you have for someone doesn't go away. You just don't know how to, they're no longer here to interact with. And how do you move forward in a life without them? I felt like, especially after my brother passed, I felt untethered in the world. I felt like this orphan. He's who I would turn to. I was who he turned to. Like, we were each other's rocks in this world, and each other's ties to our past and our history. And without that, I felt untethered. I felt at a complete loss. So this grieving, it's missing all the little things, the sound of his voice. And I'm so glad that I kept some of his messages on my phone. I one of those people that don't delete anything, and so I'm so grateful because I get to hear him say happy birthday to me. But it's finding a way to live in the world without your person,
Mm-hmm.
without that connection. And then it's the realization, and what I know for myself and my belief is that we're all energy and vibration. Everything, energy and vibration. We just are in the solid form. Energy can't be destroyed. This is one of the things that I said when I did his celebration, his life celebration. This energy can't be destroyed. It just simply changes form. So he's here. He hasn't gone anywhere. I just forget that he hasn't gone, and that I can talk to him, and he sends me bird feathers all the time. He was a birder. And so I find them everywhere. And so it's learning to communicate and learning to feel that connection where we once could see that person and hear that person on the phone, to realize that we can sense that person and that love, because it doesn't leave us. We just forget.
What does it mean when people say, I'm not grieving, or someone says to someone, you're not grieving. You're doing everything but grieving this loss or this person. Go ahead.
For me, grief is so individual. There are days when I couldn't get out of bed, no one else can judge what you do for your own healing. And yeah, there's times when you have to cocoon up and go into your cave, and all you can do is learn to breathe again. No one else has a right to judge how you grieve. My process through this has been to reach out to others to make meaning of this. And one of the things that really challenged my thought process on it was, what if this didn't happen to me? These losses, what if it was for me? What if their losses were to bring me where I'm supposed to be in life? And, I talked at the beginning about struggling with this idea of self-worth. As soon as my brother was killed and I was going through, these lawsuits and dealing with the lawyers and just the mess that it was, there was this voice inside me that said, Audrey, excuse me, but wake fuck up, because you don't have time for this. It's like you're done with that you're done with this idea that you're not worthy. Get over it, because you have things to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, my process was to reach out to others. My process is to make meaning of the losses that I've experienced by helping others.
You seem to have, not seem, but you obviously have a certain strength to walk into these arenas, the arena of grief in different situations. What part of that was intentional? I mean, you talked about your upbringing and then the chaos there, but not everyone comes out of it doing what you're doing. How did this become intentional for you?
I in a way, I think I wish I knew. But what I think I'm finding is that I just have this inner core of belief that we're all in this together. None of us gets out of this alive. we, in our society especially, we don't talk about grief. And we do everything that we can to live longer, to prolong life, to think about it in terms of quantity versus quality. And we don't talk about these things. And I think maybe that's it, Guy. It's just now it kind of hit me, this idea that when I was little, I always wanted to talk about everything. I wanted to talk about what was hidden in the room that nobody else wanted to talk about. And maybe that's it, that I want to talk about these things. I want people to feel like there's a space where they can be heard, or maybe no one else wants to hear it, or you feel like they don't, or they don't know how to respond to you. That doesn't scare me. In fact, bring it on. This is what life is. This is what's real, is how do we move through the things that happen in our lives? And, it's not just grieving the loss of people. It's grieving the loss of our childhood. It's grieving the loss of our sense of self. It's grieving the loss of a job. It's grieving the loss of coworkers, and having the survival guilt of not being the one who's caught in a layoff. There's so much that we grieve. I and every time I talk to people, I'm always in awe of what they're dealing with behind the scenes, right? If I'm honored and lucky enough for people to open up to me, I hear about the fact that their son was killed by their ex's boyfriend. I hear about, they're caretaking their parents because one has dementia, one has ALS. I hear about going through a breast cancer diagnosis. All of these things people are dealing with all the time. Where can they go to really honor their grief so that they can talk about it, to hold space, to have some tools to move through it, to grow around it so that you can carry this? Because everybody has this. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't, you will. There is a statement in a book called the title's gonna, it's by Francis Weller. And in there, I think, is The Wild Side of Sorrow. He says, everything you love, you will lose. And you can either take that as, I'm not going to love, I'm not going to put myself out there, or you can take this as, I am going to relish in every single thing that we do and experience, and find the gifts and find the joy and find the beauty in life, because it's there.
So you're a coach?
I am. And I'm a coach trainer.
And you're a coach trainer. So who comes to you?
We have a variety of people who come through the Grief Coach Academy, people who themselves are grieving and wanting to learn how to process their own grief. We have people who are on their journey through their own grief and see a need to help others. And I really believe both parts of those are so healing. And a lot of people who come into the Grief Coach Academy may not have any thought at first that this is something that they want to do. And then through the process, they see how it has changed them, their own lives, and brought them peace. And they want to give this to others. So we work with individuals and who are struggling with their own process. We work with professionals who are wanting to add to their toolbox to help others. Kind of just the myriad of anybody who's touched with grief. How's that?
Can you share with us kind of an example, a case, for example, of someone who came to you and how you worked with them? What does it look like in this particular instance?
Yeah, no, I have a gentleman that I'm still working with, and I alluded to him earlier. His son was I believe, 3 years old. And he was killed, I think, 14 years ago by his ex's boyfriend at the time. He was severely beaten, and he was unaware that all of this was going on. And he actually searched us out, and we had some amazing conversations about what this did to his life. He shut down. He was angry. He really lost himself for about 12 years.
Wow.
And it wasn't
Why
until...
did he come to you in the first place?
Because he wants to help others. Over the last couple of years, he's realized that he has this desire to help men who've lost their children.
Mm-hmm.
And men struggle with finding their voice. He turned to drugs and alcohol and shut down, and then became a workaholic. And it wasn't until his daughter had kind of reached out to him, and it kind of broke his heart open and went, I need to change. I need to step up for my daughters. And so he's on this path of healing himself. He's on this path of wanting to be a voice for men who have lost their children. And I think he has a great, amazing potential to do that. And so we've talked a number of times, and we're still working together on his process. But it's really looking at, one of the things that we do is, it's called the PEACE method, and it's really cognitive behavior therapy. But it's about taking this idea that we have in our head, and we believe something. It's a belief, and a belief is just a thought that we continue to think, and it can change, right? But we're so stuck on this one belief. Like for me, it was, my brother shouldn't have sacrificed his life for her. And it's like, if you give the voice to that and really allow everybody to express it, then you allow the possibility. How can you accept it? What can you appreciate in this? For me, it was about appreciating that he lived his life the way he wanted. He was, about his duty and honor. And that allowed me to see that he would have sacrificed his life for her or for anybody else. And so it allows people to move from this idea of this painful thought into, there are these other possibilities that are true. And so we're still working through that with his process right now.
Was there a part of, how did he manage? How did he grieve? Because it sounds like he came to you.
He really suppressed a lot. And I think, and that's what he wants to help others process through his grief. He's very eloquent and has done a lot of journaling and writing about his story. He's still in his process, but he's really, for him, the wake-up call with his daughter, he's really turned to his family. And now he's ready to, and he's done a lot of self-work, a lot that I've done before I came to the Grief Coach Academy. And now he's ready to really dive into his own grief on a different level, and also to help others.
Wow. Audrey, damn, you're amazing. You are so inspiring. You just have this presence about you that I think a lot of us maybe wish we had, because there's no joke. What you've gone through is just crazy. And just thank you for being here.
Thank you.
How do people learn more about what you're doing and reach out to you?
They can go to our website, my website called the Grief Coach Academy. So it's griefcoachacademy.com. On there, they can sign up to get some free videos. I'm going through a little bit of a process of restructuring our training. So I don't have a next training date, but we will soon. But through there, you can reach out to me, book a call. I hold weekly calls on Wednesday night that anybody can call into.
Oh.
We hop on Zoom and talk about a little bit about the Grief Coach Academy, and also whatever's alive in whoever's online with me. What's alive for them. Let's talk about it. Let's go through what's coming up, and find that support in each other, because we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So, and they can also find me on Instagram, TikTok. It's Grief Coach Academy, or at Grief Coach Academy, and also at Audrey Laura White. And yeah.
We'll have that linked up with the show notes page here at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. Audrey, love to have you back.
I would love to be back, Guy.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome meeting you. And thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for this forum. Thank you for helping amplify my voice in this story, and ultimately to help others through their grief.
Yeah, you're welcome. We'll be in touch. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.